One.
All right.
What's up, everybody? It is
Prove what you made of. Prove what kind of heart you got in your chest.
Monday, January 13th, and we are on the Kitchen Baby Labor Watch. So this is the Insiders TV Daily Fantasy NBA show. Joining me, the one, the only, Grant Girton, CEO of Fanium, also has a new app that's in beta, and it's called DFS, or is it called just Elite?
It's called Fantasy Elite.
Fantasy Elite.
DFS Elite because Fantasy Elite was taken on Twitter, so I gotta do by some Yahoo.
Hey, I know all about that. Someone took Fantasy Insiders a while ago and did some bad things with it, apparently, on Twitter, because it's now suspended. So if you go to @FantasyInsiders, it says this account is suspended. And we tried to get it. So far, no luck, but hopefully we will. We do have a fun Monday slate. Davis Maddock, our normal Monday guest, not going to be able to join us. He is traveling. He'll be back with us tomorrow with myself and Napster Man. This is assuming that my wife doesn't go into labor. She could knock on the door, come in at any moment, and say, it's go time. And I'll just toss off my headphones, and I don't know what. We'll just have to cancel. We'll just have to cancel the show.
I've had to prepare for this scenario. I've been thinking all day, what happens if I get in the scenario? I think I should start the show with my play of the day. That's what I decided. I have to do what I usually do at the end of the show and do it early because I got to make sure that everyone knows that I'm all about Carmelo today. Probably the most of any show all year. Today is Carmelo's day against the Suns. All over it. Not waiting till the end. I'm just coming out and saying it in the first minute of the show because we don't know if we'll be here at 1:30 for me to spew out that Carmelo is my play of the day today. I don't see why they're favored. It's a relatively high total. I mean, not the highest, but it's in that range, and it's going to be close. And who else is going to score? They don't like playing J.R. Smith right now. I think it's so safe. Carmelo's as safe as he's going to be tonight against Phoenix.
Yeah.
All year.
It's going to be. I'm not shocked at all that you are high on Carmelo. At all. However, I think that there are other great plays out there. And there's just a lot of news today. So you have Brian Roberts, who's going to be playing, Tyreek Evans, rather, they're not sure whether he's going to be playing or not. I'm trying to see if there are any updates to him. And so you still have Roberts, who is a good candidate for the point guard position. His salary really hasn't gone up, and I think that
anything. That's part of the reason why.
Yeah, his first two games have been horrible, but we haven't seen what he's capable of doing and what he proved he was capable of doing last year.
He's not a bad player. He's still a reasonable play, low price.
Yeah. Also, Danny Green going to be out for 4 weeks. They say 4 weeks. The same injury happened to Anthony Davis. He was out for 16 days, but all we care about is daily. He is going to be out, which means Manu Ginobili is going to get more minutes. Looking at him on a few sites, Ginobili looks like one of the top value guys. Also, Marvin Williams left the shoot-around early with the illness. I think he'll play. The bigger story there is Gordon Hayward. We still haven't heard anything definite on Gordon Hayward, but I don't think that he is going to play tonight. It was some sort of hip issue that kind of came out of nowhere. And so if Marvin Williams wasn't sick, he would have been a great value play at some sites around the industry. But now that he is sick, again, I think he's going to play, but I'm more hesitant to play him on a night like tonight. Wilson Chandler is going to be playing. However, Quincy Miller going to be starting. So there's some news on the injury front.
Tore it up, too. He tore it up in his last game, Quincy Miller.
Yeah, and they're saying all of the Denver beat writers have been really impressed with what he's been able to do. So Jimmy Butler looks like he he went through
He's
shoot
playing.
around and is going to be
Wants to
playing
play.
tonight. Your thoughts on this Chicago team right now? Are you
Still
going to
avoid
recommend
Butler.
Carlos Boozer? That's all I need to know from you.
Boozer, I'm all about the Booze Cruise tonight on FanDuel at 5-9. I think I think you can queue up the Booze Cruise on FanDuel. It's not going to be that exciting for you, but like, I think as far as a cash games play goes, he's got a good bet to meet value at 5-9. I'm not sure he's not gonna blow you away, but he always has a chance to get a lot of rebounds. And he scores. He's having a mediocre year as far as actual playing goes, but he'll still start and get minutes, and that's a team that really still, even with Dunleavy stepping up a little bit recently, is in Augustin to an extent. They're pretty bad at scoring, and Boozer's one of the only guys on the team that scores. So I think that $5,900, you can feel pretty good about Boozer in a close game. I think Butler's still a guy who has potential to put up a lot of value. If you want to play him in a GPP, if he's active, go for it. Because I think at the end of the day this year, if he's healthy, Butler's the best player on the Bulls. But that being said, I still think that guy's getting hurt like every game he's out there. So, and he was out last game. I just think I don't know what version of Butler's going to show up. But there's a show, the last show I was on 2 weeks ago, I said to sit him, and he went off. So, for the same reason. So, I think that me telling you not to play him might be an omen to throw him in your GPP lineup and give him a go. But if he doesn't play for some reason, then of course Snell's very cheap on FanDuel. He had 0 points last game, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
We weren't chasing last game's points. And Dunleavy, obviously, and Augustin all get a boost. That does happen for some reason.
Yeah, Dunleavy obviously would be the go-to guy. I mean, they just don't have a lot of scoring. Joakim Noah has been a great. I mean, he's just playing kind of like the old Joakim Noah that we have come to know and love. However, his salary is creeping up around the industry, so not sure I'd want to go there. Another game tonight that has some injury-related news, this Magic and Mavericks game. This is the most one-sided contest as far as Vegas is concerned, with the Mavs at home being a 12-point favorite. You have Vooch, who's still not ready to play, has been a big hit for the Magic. And you also have Aflalo, who's going to be out, and a game-time decision for Jameer Nelson. He hurt his hand on Saturday. This looks like a game for Mr. Oladipo and Mr. Tobias Harris, or as the play-by-play guy was saying on Saturday, Tobias. It was driving me insane. Kept on saying Tobias. But you do have to worry about a blowout factor, but there's so many people that could be injured that I think you'll still see 35-plus minutes out of Oladipo and Harris tonight. So those are two guys that I'm looking at. The other side of that with the Mavs, I just don't know if I'm going to be going there at all. If anything, maybe Crowder. Maybe my boy Crowder on minimum salary sites. But I'll probably be staying away from that side because it does look like it's going to be a blowout. What are your thoughts on that game, Grant?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to go for anyone in the Mavs, go for the guys that are going to play, even if it's a blowout, or might get a boost. So, like, the kind of guy I'd look for is Brendan Wright at $3,800 on FanDuel, is putting up decent value on a night-to-night basis at that minimum salary for a cash game. And I think his minutes will go up if they do indeed smoke Orlando with nobody. So he's the kind of guy I could see them putting in the last 12 minutes of the game if they're just destroying Orlando, getting you 20, 25 fantasy points at a $3,800 price point for a cash game. You can get away with that. So I think he's a playable guy, but I would avoid the Mavericks. I think Oladipo is very much in play, though, because who else are they going to have? I mean, Nelson and Aflalo both out. He's going to have to play minutes regardless if that happens. So I think you got to at least consider him. And Harris has been playing awesome from a fantasy perspective right now, and his price is at a point where I think that you talk about seeing the Joakim Noah of old. We're starting to see the Tobias Harris of last year, who was an ATM machine. So definitely, that's a place that I would not hesitate to go with Harris or Oladipo tonight. But I'm in about the same place you are as far as that game goes.
Yeah, you have. There are 7 games tonight, so it's not like a typical Monday slate. And there's no 76ers game. I saw. Oh, who was it on Twitter? Maybe the Luch said that today was going to be fun. Either him or Insiders Fantasy. I always get them mixed up. But said that it was going to be fun on Monday because there was no games involving the 76ers. He thinks that taking the 76ers just is it's like stacking in baseball. But we saw with the Knicks that wasn't necessarily true. A lot of people that stacked some of those guys got in trouble against the Sixers. But there are some fun games. It seems like a lot of the games are like fast paced versus slow paced teams, and so the Nuggets and Jazz game is probably going, with all the injuries, is probably going to be the most relevant daily fantasy game, I think. Lawson,
fire up the whole Nuggets team. A team could be 100%. If you're ever going to stack a team, I was looking down and doing my research today. I've got pretty much every Nuggets starter in this game in play. I don't think that there's any Nuggets starter that's out of play tonight.
Yeah, so you have the Nuggets and Jazz, and it's at Utah, so that kind of lessens the likelihood of a blowout. And you also have Chandler coming off of the bench with no Arthur tonight, meaning that Quincy Miller is going to get some definite run there. Lawson looks to be the guy for the Nuggets. As far as the Jazz go, I mean, they still are projected to score around 100 points, so if Gordon Hayward cannot go, which we are just going to assume, I'm going to assume right now that he can't go. I think that you're looking at a guy like Favors and Burke who are going to have to kind of shoulder that load. And Burke that would be definitely a fun matchup for him tonight at point guard.
Yeah, I think that Burke is a guy at $5,700 in FanDuel that is definitely something you can look at. The price is not out of the question, and I think that he's going to be a guy to score a little bit more tonight. And I agree in Favors, and on the Nuggets, there are probably 7 guys that are playable. So, I think that I have no problem rolling out Mozgov if you want to. Like, you have the bench. There's a lot of different directions. Miller's probably the best value at $3,500. I mean, minimum salary, starting, fast-paced game. Just crushed it last game. No reason to think you wouldn't crush it again, or at least put value up again at the minimum salary. So I'd roll him out, and then I think Lawson's one of my top plays tonight across the board in any game. So.
No Anthony Randolph either, so you really have the bench kind of being depleted, and they're talking about Wilson Chandler having to play backup power forward. So this is going to be a fun game for those Nuggets. People are talking about Fareed in the chat, and I agree. Fareed is definitely a fun matchup. Also, some concern about Enes Kanter starting tonight. I just really think that Marvin Williams is going to play. I know he got kind of sick during shoot-around. I just have to think that with where they're at, that they need him to play tonight. And so I am just purely a gut call. I'm assuming that he is going to try to play if he can. But you're right. Mozgov, this looks like one of those games that he could excel in. Fareed, Hickson, all 3 of those guys, big men against this Utah team. I'm not really worried about Enes Kanter being a guy that prohibits them from not gaining a lot of stats there.
Yeah, I was going to say the only man I know that Lofty made a funny comment about possibly his problem with the Nuggets being that there could be one coach that could be smoking crack before the games. I would say that today the only way the Nuggets guys don't perform is if they go to some of those marijuana dispensaries they just put up in Colorado that are killing it before the game. I think that's pretty much a lock today that Nuggets guys are going to get you points.
That's your analysis.
That's all that can stop them is the new marijuana dispensaries that are apparently I saw an article, they're blowing up. So maybe if they're doing that, then that might be an issue. But as long as they're coming to the game sober, I like their odds against Utah.
You have on DraftDay Nate Robinson, who's also minimum salary. That's a risky play, but
I throw it up. I like those 5K guys on draft day. They give your lineup a lot of space.
I don't know. There's definitely. I mean, Nate Robinson can definitely do a lot with the minutes he's given. But anytime you're thinking about playing a backup in your starting lineup, especially cash games, that's just not the smart way to go. I think that probably putting him in the in like a GPP roster, if you have multiple rosters, is fine. But would not suggest using Nate Robinson in your cash games. It's someone who we don't know is going to get over 20 minutes. We're assuming this is going to be a close game, so definitely something to note. Another game that we need to talk about is this Houston Rockets and Boston Celtics game. What in the world has happened with Chris Humphries? He's like come out of nowhere. Are you rostering him tonight? I'm talking to myself. I'm freaking talking to myself. Unbelievable. So let's talk. Let's talk about this game while Grant is still looking to. Someone said he went to the dispensary. Chris Humphries. I want to pull up his game log because I want to see. There. Chris Humphries has been tearing it up lately. Going up against the Rockets tonight, you just have to worry about his salary since he's kind of been playing. But on draft day, he's 8,900, and definitely is a guy that I could see being played there against this fast-paced Houston team. So if you want to roster him, I'm not going to say don't, because I think I've been burned by saying don't like the past 2 or 3 games. So I will have probably a little bit of Chris Humphries in my lineup, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but that is what I'm telling you. Let's see. Papa Cub says, your OBGYN just texted, well, not mine, but my wife's, and asked if you could let him out of the closet and get him some water. I don't even know what that means. Grant said he got it fixed, so let's try this again. See if maybe he can come back.
That's probably my office Wi-Fi's way. Actually, I was on Ethernet, believe it or not. But that's probably my Ethernet's way of saying in the internet, don't play Nate Robinson. I was about to go justify who he's going to get matched up against on the bench, but that's probably what.
I did the thing where I was talking to myself, Grant. Like, I was talking, I asked you a question, and then I looked over, and there was nothing there. So that's what happened. But I was asking about Chris Humphries, and Nat brought up the point that he's probably going to be guarding Dwight Howard tonight. But a good matchup, obviously a fast-paced game, and Humphries has been playing well of late. Are you going to have any shares of Humphries in your lineup?
I don't see why not. He's still cheap. He's putting up good production, and when guys are at Humphries' salary, I think that I'm going to pull up his FanDuel salary right now. I think that when you got him at 4,200 with his recent production, I don't think it's a terrible risk. I think that if he's out on the floor, he'll probably do something. People have to score in basketball games, I think.
Yeah, the power forward position, and I saw that Scott was talking about this. The power forward position, there's just not any like locks. So he calls Dirk Nowitzki his solid play, and even that play I'm a little bit hesitant for.
It's a blowout, so I wouldn't want to spend all my money there.
So yeah, definitely small forward is going to be another just problem tonight. But power forward, not the options that we typically have for a 7-game slate. So I'm fine with going cheap. It's
On
4,200.
FanDuel, though, you got Carmelo with power forward eligibility. So even greater reason that you can go with my play of the night. It's expensive, but I like him. And you get him in a good position, too.
It is going to be a fun game. Carmelo, he put together a really good first 2 or 3 quarters the other night. And then, or maybe, no, was it a first quarter? I don't know. He's had a good first half the past 2 games. He just hasn't finished it up. And
it's his worst game since the San Antonio game on the 2nd is 35.6 fantasy points. So you're talking about a very, very high floor in Carmelo. It's actually been pretty much the picture of consistency. And in of the last 6 games, he's gone over 40 fantasy points 4 times.
Excuse me. It seems like on sites that have multi-position eligibility that you're wanting to target more of the centers and the power forwards, except for maybe the cheap guys like Tobias. So as far as just looking at some of these values, maybe not a great day to play over there on FanDuel, but on places where you have guys that are eligible at the power forward and the center position, I think it's definitely something you want to look at the centers more than the power forwards. This Pelicans game, Anthony Davis, you've got him as someone who's definitely played well of late. Joakim Noah, Dwight Howard. From these 3, which one are you most likely to roster tonight?
I like Howard the most from a pure who's got the best game perspective. I think that Dwight Howard, regardless of salary, probably has the best game. I'd like to roster Howard, but that's not necessarily easy to find the roster room. This cap room for Howard. I personally prefer Carmelo as a play to Howard tonight, which I made pretty clear earlier in the show. And our sponsor, Davis, is more expensive than Howard. So in that case, I'd still go with Howard. The Spurs, I try to avoid people playing the Spurs sometimes. It's already been said before. They do interesting things. Probably the best. It's fine. My best statistical analysis, but I could see Davis getting into foul trouble in this game. I don't know. Gut feeling on Davis just isn't that good today. I prefer Howard to Anthony Davis, and then on draft day, I definitely take Howard as far as those 3 salaries go. I think that on FanDuel you have an 8,000. The drop off from 9,200 to 8,000 is a little bit more. At least it seems to be to me. Making a FanDuel roster, I could see myself going very cheap at center today in general, though. I'm not sure I take any of those guys really.
You don't really feel great about playing anyone against the Spurs typically.
I like Mozgov. I feel good about Mozgov. I'm playing talking about FanDuel. That's where I'd use Mozgov. Or if Cantor starts at $4,900, maybe even JV if I'm feeling bold at 56. But I just don't see it being a position I spend on today.
Yeah, you have Dwight Howard, who I think is a very good play tonight. Typically, don't really recommend him for cash games, but on a night like tonight, I don't have a problem at all with someone using him in those cash games. So I don't have a problem with Dwight. He's been playing well recently. Chandler Parsons is going to supposedly return tonight. So he did go through shoot around. Look for him to play. So for those wanting to roster some of those small forwards, Caspi, Garcia, who actually had a really good game last game after they kind of wet the bed the game before. You won't be able to use them. But Terrence Jones, 19 and 17, with Smith being in the lineup, Parsons was out, and it was against the Wizards. But you have him, who is also a pretty good option, probably going to have Bass or Solinger on him. So I look for him to be a decent spot start if you want to. I'm just not sure. His price is so high recently, where or compared to what he's capable of, not 19 and 17. I don't think that I'll be rostering him. But if you do, if his salary is in that medium range and you want to put him in your roster, I don't have a problem with that at all. Vegas has this game as the highest over/under. It's in Boston, so the blowout factor is not really going to be a problem here. Someone also mentioned that Vitor had been playing well in the West Coast trip, and not to be surprised if you get Stevens'd. That would be like him trying to be in Pop's shoes. Basically, with like sitting Chris Humphries tonight and playing Vitor for like 25 to 30 minutes. That'd be perfect. That'd be awesome. Just kind of.
We gotta queue up James Harden though in that game. That's the guy. I prefer Harden to Howard. I think tonight, and Harden's been just going off recently too. I mean, look at his draft day game logs. Recently, he's been his last 5. He had 3 games in a row over 50 fantasy points. Then really fell off and went for 41 and 43. Really disappointing.
And he's been really. I think that he kind of went through a little lull. Maybe was a little banged up, but recently, you're right. He has gone off, and especially we talk about the multi-position eligibility, where he is in that dreaded small forward position, can play in that dreaded small forward position. I think that he is definitely going to be a decent play at Boston. So this is going to be
all about the Carmelo Harden combo in draft day with their pricing. I think there's no reason you can't fit both in at 16.7, 16.450. I think you can fit both those guys in the lineup, and those are probably the 2 no-brainers. Those are the guys I feel like tonight are your studs that have the highest probability of success.
Someone also asked about Avery Bradley. I think that maybe people, at least this has been my experience, people tend to overestimate Avery Bradley's how he can shut down superstars. Whenever I am afraid to play someone because AB is going to be on them, it seems like they still have a really good game. And obviously, I don't have any sort of stats or math to back that up, but I'm not going to sit Harden because of Avery Bradley. That is what I guess I'm trying to say.
Actually, I want to clarify. I've been being told in the chat that I've said to play everyone today. I did very blatantly say I'm not playing Anthony Davis today, for the record. There was one person that I said that I was blatantly not playing, and so I wanted to go cheap at center. So
who said you were playing everyone today?
That's the current rumor in the chat. That I've recommended everyone. I don't believe I've recommended everyone today. I could find, if people want, I can find guys not to play.
I think I've recommended more people than you have, so I wouldn't listen to that nonsense in the chat. We do have about 25 minutes left, so feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and we will get to them. Basically, someone asked about Manu, and the beat writers for the Spurs believe that he is going to return tonight. So even if he does, though, you like Manu as one of those top plays especially on draft day and DraftKings. But Bellinelli is another special play that I could see playing against this New Orleans Pelicans game. And he's going to get minutes tonight.
I feel like I can't even say I like people anymore, but I actually really am. I'm a Bellinelli fan with the extra opportunity he's going to get. And I know what he can do from Chicago. When he gets minutes, he can score. And he did win me a lot of money in the playoffs last year when he came in and played for, I'm not sure, I think it was Luol Deng got hurt in the playoffs last year, and Bellinelli got those extra minutes and did very nice things for me against the Brooklyn Nets. So
he did very nice things for you.
I have a sweet spot for him. Good player. Very
nice. Someone asked about the small forward position on FanDuel. There's not a lot of small forward options, and there never is. It's what stinks about sites that don't have multi-position eligibility. So if you're looking for a play on FanDuel, you could look at Richard Jefferson as a punt play. The other guys, Leonard, Aminu, Marion, like those guys just aren't really exciting me. Leonard is coming off a decent game, so maybe where maybe when Danny Green's going to be out, might want to play him, but small forward is just kind of a punt play tonight. That is all that I know. I missed the days where Carmelo was small forward eligible over there on FanDuel. Let's see. We have Napster Man, who is big on the psychology factor, says that Foy has mini revenge night tonight against Utah. That is correct. He did used to play for Utah. Good catch there, Nap. But he's been playing well of late. However, I think I'm targeting some of those other guys other than Foy. And I've done this before, and it's bit me big time. Condia is a big Foy fan for what it's worth. But I probably will not have a lot of Foy in my lineups because his price has crept up where I can't justify playing him anymore.
I got a question I can answer about DJ Augustin. It'll make people happy. I'd say if Butler plays, don't play Augustin because Augustin's production in the last game was partially a factor. They play Augustin and Heinrich together on the floor more when Butler's out. So if Butler comes back, Augustin won't play as much, and there are just better risks to take tonight than DJ Augustin. So, but at the small forward position, I think that Quincy Miller is probably my top punt guy at small forward. Given the situation, I like all the Nuggets. I think that you could roll out both. I wouldn't roll out two guys in the Nuggets in small forward, but I would roll out Quincy Miller. I have no issue with doing that. There's not much to pay for there. And maybe PJ Tucker has had some decent games, but there are better options. I mean, his best game as of recent versus Detroit. He played 42 minutes all of a sudden. I didn't watch the game. I don't know why he played 42 minutes, but he did.
Who is this?
PJ Tucker. His last game played 42 minutes against Detroit and had his best game as of recent, like 17, 11, 3. He's not a guy that I roll out, but
he's a guy that you want to play him those games like against Detroit, those high-paced games. Some of the questions out there, Patrick Patterson, again, he is on the second team and has done well. However, for a value play, I think I'd probably rather play Amir tonight against the Bucks. I forget who the Bucks played last game, but I think it might have been Chicago. Was it?
Yeah, it was. I watched that game.
But I was just kicking myself for not playing. You have to look at the bigs when they play the Bucks, and definitely.
And Harris is on the board at power forward, and at least on FanDuel.
Yeah, someone asked Pat or Valanciunas. I think Valanciunas. I mean, Patterson has ever since Psycho T kind of went out. He has been great with that second team. I just would much rather play the starters than the bench players, who you still don't trust 100%. Let's see. Brian Roberts for cash game. Yes. I think that Brian Roberts, like I said, his first 2 games starting in place for Drew Holiday, they've been rough. He just hasn't been able to score. I think even against the Spurs tonight, I think for where his salary's at, for the minutes that he's going to get and the opportunity that he's going to get, I think he's still okay for cash games.
Easy. Yeah, he doesn't have to do too much to pay off a $4,200 salary on FanDuel.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be worried. I wouldn't be too worried about rostering Roberts if you want to play him. And also DraftDay at $78.50, another salary for that opportunity that I wouldn't have any problem with.
we had some questions about Kenyon Martin. Tyson Chandler we're not sure if he's going to play or not. He is questionable, one of those dreaded game time decisions. But if he does not play, would you rather go Kenyon or Amare as kind of that value position?
I'd ride the hot hand with Stoudemire. I mean, he's coming off just a monster game. If Chandler's out, I see no reason why you can't go back to the well. Not that anyone played him before, but against Philadelphia. But if you didn't play him before, I think that while he's hot, why not take him? He's got a day off and see what he can do.
Yeah, he like you said, he didn't play yesterday. He played on Saturday. So you can't be that concerned. Let me pull up his game logs to see his minutes that he got last game. 22 minutes against Philadelphia. But you look, he put almost 28 fantasy points there. Miami with 27 minutes had 28 fantasy points. So that's what you have there with him. He's going to get those mid-20s, so you just have to be aware of that. So if he does not if he's like not on fire, then obviously it's going to be a lot harder to pay off where his price is. So as far as the other end of that game, Goran Dragic has been great. He just hasn't been able to really score like in the past. But Dragic against this Knicks defense is another guy that I'll be looking at as one of those cash game players. I've just been really impressed watching him. He's a fun player to watch.
Puts up a lot of points, too.
Yes, he can. He certainly can put up a lot of points.
That's the point.
So looking at his game logs, he has obviously had a not that great of a game against Detroit, and they kind of used him and abused him on defense, but had 28 fantasy points. So 39 before that, 46, 27, 25, 50, 47, 33, 14. So you have to realize that he is a little bit of a streaky player, but again, a guy that I don't mind playing against this Knicks team. So he would be a guy who's also shooting guard eligible, and we talked about in the past the importance of playing kind of those power forwards in the small forward spot when you can, or those point guards in the shooting guard spot when you can. So like you talked about having a Harden-Anthony lineup. You could also get a Roberts or a Dragic in there at the shooting guard position. So
very easily in that same lineup. So
yeah, don't mind that at all. Some questions that we have in the chat: Fareed or Favors? And mentioned that Favors was good versus Denver last game. I think I'd go Favors, especially with the questions about Hayward not being in the lineup tonight. So he would definitely be the safer option. The one thing about Favors is that I thought that last game he would be decent against Cleveland. He had 19 fantasy points. And before that, 25. Before that, 19. Before that, against Milwaukee, though, he had 43. So he is capable of putting up some pretty good stats. And against this Nuggets front court, I think would be one of those instances without Gordon Hayward where they're going to be relying on him a lot. So I think Favors over Fareed. Agree or disagree with that?
I think Favors is solid. I think that Fareed's solid. I don't think either are bad plays. But if I were to make my own picks, I think that I'd rather get more exposure. Or Carmelo's power forward eligible. I've kind of beaten the dead horse. I think you play him. But I think that I'd probably go with, I think Tobias Harris is a better play than both of those guys tonight. And he's cheaper on FanDuel. I think he's also cheaper on DraftDay. So I think on either site, if you're looking at small forward, Harris, $9,600 is a guy I'd just tee up and play at the 4. I don't see why not. If I'm not doing that, I might even just go cheaper.
Cantor had almost 32 fantasy points against Cleveland in 25 minutes. Someone mentioned in chat that somebody is going to go off against this Denver front court. either Favors or Cantor. And
Favors hasn't been lighting it up, though. I mean, his last 3 games, looking at an average fantasy points of about 20 per game. I think it could be a good game, but I'm not getting myself overly enthusiastic, especially at he's not expensive, but he's not ridiculously cheap either. He's sitting around $10K on DraftDay. He's sitting at, he's sitting on FanDuel. We're talking about $600 more than Boozer. I'd rather play Boozer than Favors for cheaper.
Question asked: Lawson or Duncan on DraftStreet on an efficiency site? Which one would you rather have?
Lawson or who's the other option?
Duncan.
Tim Duncan?
Yep.
So that's a very weird combination of people. But
what's the utility spot?
At the utility spot, I'd go with Lawson over Duncan tonight. Love Ty Lawson in this game.
Yeah. I really like...
This is all Lawson. Lawson's a top 5 play tonight, in my opinion, regardless of salary.
They're both good plays. However, on a site like FanDuel, against the Pelicans, you do have the pop factor. I just have to think that... I'd go Duncan. I think that he's the safer play against this Pelicans team. So
Bellinelli is the only Spur I'd roster tonight.
And that's fine. But
so there you go. There's like 11 people I just said not to play. So now I got Anthony Davis and 11 other people on my not playlist.
Yeah. You don't have to. Don't feel bad for recommending players. It's the name of the game.
So I was making sure it's very clear that there's a lot of people I could not like. I think the game of the show is for me to tell you people that I think I'd want to play. But if you want to go down the list, got Derrick Rose at $700. I wouldn't play him. I think that's a pretty. I think it's pretty clear that Derrick Rose is not a play tonight. For those who are curious, love Derrick Rose, but
it's like I said, it's the name of the game. It's the tout life. We don't like spoon feed people the exact lines, but we get people that we think are good plays, and that is just kind of the. I mean, it's good to disagree, but especially some of the touts in the chat right now. You know what I'm saying? That's all they do. It's all they do. Napster, man. Gosh.
Eric Gordon's a good call, though. I meant to mention Eric Gordon today, and it's in the chat.
Oh, man. Gordon screwed me.
He's going off. Eric Gordon's been playing some good basketball.
He fouled out. He freaking fouled out the other night. I needed some OT bad in that. That's twice the NBA has come back and apologized for a bad call at the end of the game that could have meant overtime, which would have been good for me because I definitely was invested in that Pelicans Mavs game. Monty Williams still confuses me, and still confuses me how, for whatever reason, Austin Rivers is taking that last shot, or even while Austin Rivers is in the game at that point.
They even have their first round pick. They can't even say they're tanking. They don't have the pick. Unless they're end up terrible, horrendously bad, top 6 protected. I don't think that's going to happen. They don't have the pick. They don't have an excuse. They can't even say they're tanking. They already traded the thing to get Drew Holiday. So it's just bad.
So do you like Eric Gordon more than Oladipo?
No,
not
really.
I don't either.
I just wanted to. I think it's worth mentioning. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's a guy I pulled the trigger on, but he's also one of those. He's the kind of guy I can see where I don't pull the trigger on him, and my opponent pulls the trigger on him, and then I sit there the whole game, and I'm like,
yeah,
that sucks. So it's not a terrible idea. I just think for $300 more, Oladipo's going to get you a lot more stats besides points. Davis always talks about that. He hates the guys that don't get you stats besides scoring. Eric Gordon's not going to give you a bunch of assists. His last 4 or 5 games, he's maybe gets 3 to 4 assists. 4 is the max. His maximum, he had 6 rebounds actually against the Pacers, in the 4th. He had a few decent games with some boards, but he also can turn the ball over. I don't know. So can Oladipo, but Oladipo I think is going to get you a lot more. He's just going to have to have the ball in his hands a lot tonight because there's just not that many people that do anything for Orlando. So someone's got to score. Unless it's 100-0, it should be pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, you talk about those peripherals, and Gordon definitely does not have those other ones. So someone asked Gordon, Oladipo, or Crawford. I'd probably go Oladipo tonight. I think, and I think a lot of people will do that. I was actually surprised at how highly owned he was on Saturday night. I mean, he was like 40 to 50% on some sites. So I think that a lot of people are going to be in Oladipo. So he's definitely the safest play. Foy, Butler, if he plays, which we are assuming that he's going to, or Crawford tonight. Which one would you choose out of that, Grant?
Which site is this?
I don't know. Maybe it's K Cannon, so maybe Fan Throwdown. I don't know K Cannon's other sites.
I can't give any insights about Fan Throwdown pricing, but on an objective, so we had Crawford, Butler, or Foy. Not getting hyped up. Not getting hyped up by anybody here. So, but let's see. Crawford's putting up really nice numbers though. The last three, Jordan Crawford's had some really nice games. If we go with the standard FanDuel pricing, Foy at 52, Butler, I'd go with Crawford at $6,500 on FanDuel pricing, which I think is pretty common. But obviously, it depends on what. If Foy's a lot cheaper, I might go that direction. Butler's a guy who I personally, I'd stay away from until he plays a full game and you see how healthy he is. Because it's not one injury. He's had like 3 or 4 at least at this point that are bothering him. I'm not sure he's healthy. I'd rather go with Dunleavy if you're going to go with the Bulls guard forward. But yeah, I don't love that play. I think Boozer. I think it's a good night for Boozer. He's a guy that might not be mentioned that many other places. His price is at a point tonight where I think Boozer at $1,500 is a way better play than Favors at $6,500. That's a guy that's being mentioned way more today. I think that Boozer's a better play than Favors. So.
Boo. Zer. You just have to hope that he gets it all done in 3 quarters. You can't trust him in the 4th quarter.
He was hurt, but his last 2 games got 35 fantasy points and 29.5. So he's not this is not a guy who's been going out there and shitting the bed. We're talking about a guy who's putting up 50% more fantasy points right now on average pretty much in the last 3 games than Favors.
Yeah, so Boozer versus Jones on FanDuel for me, I'd probably go Jones.
I'm definitely getting on the cruise.
That's how much. That's how much I don't like playing Boozer.
It's the first time. It's been the first time in like a month. I'm recommending Boozer again. Full confidence. Cash games. $1,500. Go for it. I think I've probably lost people money in the past recommending Boozer, but you know what? This is the day. He's back. Boozer and Carmelo. You get your full slate of normal picks from me today. I've given you Carmelo, Boozer. Today is a good day for him.
So Alex Free in the chat says, on nights like this, when you know that one really expensive guy is still going to have a really high own percentage, do you ever not take him, even though you know he'll likely have a good game? And then in parentheses he puts in tourneys. And I think the answer is it depends. There's a lot of different factors in this. So it's what type of tournament are we talking about? Do you have multiple entries? Is this a 30 or 40 person tournament that's $25 or $50, or is it a $2 entry where it's sure? I don't have a problem at all fading a guy who has a high own percentage, especially on efficiency sites, fading a guy like Carmelo Anthony, who you think people are going to be all on. The other night, even on DraftDay, it was 76% owned in one of the big tournaments, and he didn't reach value. Not a lot of people reached value that night, but he was one of the highest owned players that night. And because people paid so much, if you faded him, especially if they have a really bad game, then it certainly puts you ahead of the curve, assuming that all your players that you play hit that night. I mean, that's the thing with these basketball tournaments. You have to basically hit on every position, and if you can't there's not a lot of room for error, especially on your high price guys. And so I don't have a problem at all with fading a guy, especially on efficiency sites that you're not sure of. Now, fading a guy who is low salary, who is going to be just great play. So let's say Brian Roberts, for example, when it came out that he was going to be playing for the Pelicans, like fading a guy like that at a cheaper salary is not as advantageous for you as fading a higher price guy, because in all likelihood the reason why the cheaper guy is going to be so highly owned is because of the value that he presents. So what I like to do is, especially if I have multiple lineups, I'll just basically bunch that cheap player in with like another 2 or 3 guys and have them as my core group, and then fill in the roster with the other guys. So I'm much more in favor of fading a high-priced, highly owned guy than a low-priced, highly owned guy. I think when it comes time for the low-priced, highly owned players, you're basically just down a roster spot. When there's like a give me, you don't look at it as I'm going to fade this guy and look to see what else I can get. You're thinking, all right, well, now I'm playing 7-on-7 or 8-on-8, because it basically just takes that guy.
I think nailing the stars are important too, though. At the same time, especially in a tournament, if you miss Carmelo tonight, sometimes I think Chop talked about this as well. Oftentimes, you're better off leaving. If there's a guy who's going to be 60% owned and they're in a great matchup, you're better off having that person and just leaving the other 40% of the field behind in a GPP sometimes, though, than you are trying to get too smart and say, all right, I think it just goes on both ends of the spectrum, both in the low-priced and the high-priced guy, depending on their upside. Like, you can end up nights, this isn't one of those nights, but with Durant, he can score 70 or 80 fantasy points. So if you decide tonight, I'm going to fade Kevin Durant, it might just come back to haunt you even worse than missing the value guy. Because the value guy talking about 20 points, maybe you put a different guy in place and somewhat close out, it's like 20 or 25 points. If you miss out on 71 points, it's going to be hard to make that up, especially in a GPP where the person who has Durant in that GPP with 70% owned probably has a bunch of other good guys that you pick too. So that's when it gets. That's why it's going to be. I think it's tough to. I think that if you have multi-entries, then go fade Carmelo and Harden and go see what happens. But in a double-up, I don't see the reason to do that. There's plenty of value tonight, too. Like, looking at FanDuel, DraftDay, too, I don't see any problem finding value. You got, like, Quincy Miller at $3,500, like Roberts at 42. Those are guys you can just play. I don't think that there's any fear in playing those people. Your worst-case scenario with Roberts and Miller are not that bad.
Hella Mobbin asks, so your advice is to play the players with the most fantasy points?
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. I mean, that is what you're doing. However, in like big tournaments, in those 1,000-person plus tournaments, I think we have seen where like fading an obvious play that can put you ahead of the group. And we've seen other players that use the example like for cash games, and it works for them sometimes. So I think it's definitely
more doing that though than I've won. I've had a lot of bad moments in GPPs this year where I'm like the worst one was in week 16, not outside of the millionaire, but I faded LaShawn McCoy. So I'm like, I'm just going to get smart and everyone's going to play him. And I just watched my really good lineup go to shit in 9th place of 29 people and cost myself probably a few $1,000s because I was too smart for myself. And that's what you don't want to do. Like, it's simple to say. It's true, though. The secret is the team with the most points wins. And, I think that you can outsmart yourself sometimes before those tournaments happen. And I've done it before, and I'll do it again. But sometimes it's just you got to be smarter than that. Like, the guy's going to be 70% owned. Well, good. If you're better than everybody else, you'll beat him on the other 8 people. There's no reason to try to beat him on the one player that everyone knows is going to do well. In my case, it was the best running back in the league against the worst run defense. I don't know how I could be. I get everything else right. Just nailed Danny Dalton and AJ Green's 4-touchdown combo, and I'm not smart enough just to put the easy thing in. That's not what you want to see. So I think that the moral of the story for tonight is I think that you play the guys, especially a guy like James Harden, who's as I said, his worst game's 40 fantasy points in his last 5. He can do badly, but I don't want to bet on James Harden doing badly. Like, that's a guy I can throw in there with confidence.
Yeah, people are asking in the chat about the whole highly owned thing. Someone asked if you have all guys that are 30% or over, you probably were not going to win on those big tournaments. And when you just like apply math to it, still you still have like 8 different combinations. Like or 9, depending on the site. So you still have other players, and like that. Like we talk about cracking the code, that's what it's all about. So having highly owned players is not bad. At the end of the day, it's just one of many different strategies. Dink talked about how the only tournaments he's ever won is highly owned players. I think the tournaments that I've won, some of them include players that were under 10% owned or 5% owned. That gave me a jump over the rest of the crowd. So there's just so many different strategies. But I would be if I just encourage like one strategy, it would be to play the best lineup.
Yeah.
However, I will say that there are other lineups. I mean, there are other strategies out there that work and that
multi-entry, especially. I think that's if you have the ability to do it and you can, that's still in a GPP. That's still the best way to go. Like, I don't feel comfortable playing GPPs a lot of the time unless I've got. The only way I'll play my GPP thing is if everyone's got one lineup, like in a Star Street Elite Like tournament, then I'm great just playing my best lineup. But if other people have the chance to multi-entry, I understand the argument that it might be more optimal from expected value to play one lineup, but I personally just don't see it that way. That's one thing I'll say. If other people can multi-entry, I think that your best advantage ultimately at the end of the day is to have that ability to cover a few different scenarios. Because, hey, if I've got my bet hedged on Melo, he could have a bad game. So can Harden. So could Durant. So can anybody. Someone gets 4 fouls, and they can go out of the game, and that's that. So I think in basketball especially, where you mentioned that the best way to win a GPP, you got to get every position right. So there's no way having multiple entries can't help you in trying to get everyone right. Because a lot of shit can happen in a given game. So you can do the thing in about 2 weeks for Android, probably in about a month. An iPhone, you go play Fantasy Elite, and ownership percentages aren't an issue, and you can just outsmart people. Which I can make that plug also. Nope. And never have to worry about the other guy owning your player. If you don't like Carmelo, pick someone else.
And you like Carmelo tonight. If you want to though read more about it. I would definitely encourage you to go check out Drew's article in the Daily Fantasy Rundown that he has there. Drew is the guy that I go to when I talk about tournaments, when I have tournament strategy. Like he is that go-to guy for me, and one of the most brilliant guys in the industry. So his article is great. So if you're wondering about tournaments, it's included in the Daily Fantasy Rundown premium package there at rotoexperts.com. He'll be on with us on Wednesday, so maybe he'll talk a little bit more about that. But good stuff. It is 3:35 Central Time.
We haven't done our rapid fire.
Still no baby. So let's get on with the rapid fire, shall we?
I've also been asked about my second best small forward value, which is a pretty brutal position. I'd say wait for the injury news. Like Jefferson is probably a good value behind Quincy Miller.
Yeah,
but you never know. I would if you want, ask me at 3:00 while I'm pounding away at Fantasy Elite teams because I got to make sure people can draft. But I'll get an idea at 3.
3 Pacific. You need to be specific because we
Pacific
have all sorts of time zones here on the show.
You tweet me. I think that my opinion might change as more injury news comes out. But at the moment, I'd say Jefferson behind Miller.
James Harden or Ty Lawson?
Harden.
I would go. Give me Ty Lawson.
All right.
I don't feel good about that.
Harden's crushing though in a high total game. Like I like Lawson a lot, but Harden is my number 2 play of the night behind Carmelo. So.
DDR versus Joakim Noah.
It's painful, but I gotta roll out DeRozan.
Nah, give me Joakim. I never take DDR, and it always comes back to one time. And Dink can attest to this. I had a zeroed out lineup, but it included DeMar DeRozan. So I said I don't even care what the protocol is when you have zero lineup where you have to play it. I'm not. And turns out he actually had a really good game that night. I wouldn't have won anything because the other players were terrible, but that's how much I just do not like taking DeMar DeRozan these days. Kyle Lowry versus Dragic.
Gotta be Dragic for me.
We really haven't talked about Lowry at all. I think he's a solid point guard play tonight. However, I'll take Dragic against New York. I talked earlier just about his favorable matchup. Oladipo versus Brandon Knight.
Oladipo.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest no-brainer out of them all. This one's a little bit tougher.
Not for
Boozer
me.
or Jonas?
I'm on that cruise all night tonight. I'm pushing it. He'll probably suck because that's what happens when I recommend him. I can't actually don't. I'm not sure. Has there been a night all year I've recommended Boozer? Maybe the chat can tell me where he actually played well. I'm not actually convinced I've had a night. I told myself I wasn't going to do it again, but then I saw his salary today, and I'm looking at his last few games.
The Booze Cruise rarely does well when touted. I don't know what it is.
I can't remember a night where it's worked. I'm going for it. It's like the most confident I've been, too. This is a problem. I'm worried it's probably not going to work. I'm going to do it. I'll play him, but I'm going down with you if Boozer doesn't work out. But I'm all over it.
We have some questions in the chat. They're just basically asking about rapid fire. But Avery or Brian Roberts?
Let's go with Roberts.
Yeah, I'd go with Roberts as well. DeRozan or Dirk for efficiency sites GPP?
Go DeMar. I think he gives you the most ups. I like DeMar and Felton down there. I can just rapid fire these. DeMar, Felton, and I told people, and I've said it a zillion times, I'm a Bulls fan. I don't feel comfortable with Jimmy Butler. So pretty much all the people that are decent plays around Butler's price, I'll probably recommend over Butler. And Gordon is one of those people just because I don't know if he's playing or not for sure, but it just hasn't looked as good this year. He's hurt.
Yeah.
He might explode, but I'd rather go with a guy who's not hurt.
I think as far as the question about DDR versus Dirk, I would say give me Dirk. And we know that I'm not a guy who likes to tout Dirk, but
I was worried about his minutes tonight, especially him. Like if anybody in the Mavericks, he'd be one of the first guys I'd worry about getting his minutes limited.
Well, they're talking about a GPP though, so they're talking about upside, and we saw what he's capable of doing the other night against the Pelicans.
Strong.
So I think that especially if they're still kind of hurting, I think that he can definitely provide that high upside. DeRozan
also is more expensive on FanDuel.
On efficiency sites, DeRozan could just kill your GPP team.
But on a non-efficiency site, DeRozan is just murdering it right now too. At the same token.
Do you want to put something on Dirk versus DeRozan tonight?
What do you want to throw on it? I'm not uncomfortable on DeRozan at all. So
okay.
You got 35 as his minimum in the last 7. It looks like.
Maybe we'll do another free roll or something on Elite.
Yeah, I'll throw up. I'll probably throw up anyway, but I'll throw up a free roll. You still got to get that $100 game in. The only problem is that I don't have. It's not even in the lobby right now. I think it's fair to get a pass until you have a baby. So I'm not gonna.
Everyone loves the lipstick. They love the picture of me with lipstick. Oh man. Butler Gordon on FanDuel would definitely go Gordon there. And Felton for GPPs, sure.
He's a solid play.
A GPP, he wouldn't be.
Anyway, right?
He's a solid play. He just would.
$600. It's not bad against Phoenix. Dragic isn't like a lockdown defender.
I just really doubt he's going to be in any of my lineups. I haven't really started constructing too many lineups, but I doubt that he's going to be in too many lineups, especially.
I'm not loving. I don't love Burke that much more over Felton. I might be one of the few. I don't love Burke. I don't see myself using Burke tonight, so it doesn't necessarily mean I use Felton. I just think that Burke's a guy who's going to be heavily mentioned tonight. I think Felton is right there with them in terms of upside ability. I like Jeremy Lin's not terrible tonight. All in that same range on FanDuel, right? 5,600, 5,700. I mean, I don't see myself using those people though. I like big fan of Dragic tonight. Lawson, I think that you can pay up. I like paying up at point guard in general though.
Yeah.
Sis.
This is going to be me. I don't think you can see it,
Now, when I was a little boy,
but it's that we're going to have a baby commercial. That's going to be me tonight.
The four-door.
We're going to have a baby!
You're gonna have a baby.
All right.
Nissan Maxima.
You
Innovation
have a
for
name
daddy.
yet?
Innovate.
Kara is the name. So that will be me. I will be in kind of like a freak out mode, and then I'll be cool, calm, and collected. Hopefully she comes tonight. Maybe she comes on my 30th birthday tomorrow. Maybe she comes on the full moon on Thursday. So we'll see. Thursday would be a good day, though, because there's not that many games on Thursday. And tomorrow there's only 4. So either. I mean, I just really don't want her to come on Wednesday or Friday for obvious reasons. Daily fantasy. No, just kidding. Thanks for tuning in. Again, tomorrow I'll have Davis Maddock and Napster Man on the show, and we will be talking about those 4 games. And if something does happen, Davis will be handling the show hosting duties. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Stick around in the chat. Hit us up on Twitter, and we will feel free to answer your questions, providing there is no labor going on. Thanks, guys.
I can tell you with guarantee I will not be having a baby today. So you can contact me if you need to.
I can't wait till you have a kid, Grant. Can't wait.
It's gonna happen
You don't
eventually.
you don't have to answer that, but you will be like one of the most fun dads ever. So good stuff.
Appreciate that.
Grant, appreciate you joining us on the show, and we'll see you next week, man.
Yeah. I'll be
Later,
here.
bud.